Hi everyone, Jill from the North Woods. We are on week 59 of the Great Manjaro Experiment. I love experimenting in life, and so we are doing experiments with Manjaro. We're doing experiments with our diet and weight loss, and now we're doing experiments with live sessions. This is something new for me, and I know that I've had some sound issues. I've tried everything to turn up the sound, but if for some reason this is low in sound, let me know. But I am audio processing it in an edited version if it ends up being too low. I appreciate you coming, and I appreciate you all being here. I'm going to get my comments up here. So this week we we gained 0.5 pounds, which is unfortunate. This drug has not been working well for me since after the first week of June. I've been using this as an experiment so that I can make sure that I learn how to eat. So it's not terrible. I was sick all week last week, and I was kind of, I don't want to say bedridden. I went to work, but I slept a tremendous amount of time. So I'm not terribly surprised. I didn't exercise and mostly slept. It's fine. Next week I go to the doctor and we'll see if we can move up in dose. This week's been interesting to me, not that interesting because I was sick, but I started tossing out the next level of clothes. And by tossing out, I mean donating to a charity that's local to town. And my friend Allison, she got me hooked up with a Stitch Fix coupon. And so I'm trying something new. I'm trying to see if maybe they have something else. I've only been able to shop in a corner of most stores for my entire life. And then I feel pretty fortunate because when I was a kid, there was no corner of a store. And so there was no place to shop. I ended up in my 20s learning how to sew so I could make myself sweatpants and shorts because nobody would sell them. So it is something that's new to me to have choices in clothes. And so I decided to give Stitch Fix a try. They're not a sponsor, nothing like that. I just wanted to see if they could find something new for me, something that might be a little bit different than what I'm used to wearing. And thank you so much for being in the audience. I appreciate it very much. Hello to you too. You go through this little test, and it goes through like clothes you like and clothes that you might not want. I don't really want jewelry. I don't really want dresses. I'm not much of a dress person. And so then it calls you, like it gives you a category and says, I'm a rustic rebel. That makes sense. Rustic, North Woods. I get that. So we're going to try that out. I haven't gotten the clothes yet. And when I do, maybe I'll like some of them. We'll find out. The last time when I lost weight, I kind of became everybody's project at work to dress better. They put me in new shoes, they put me in deep V's, and they, kind of bought me dresses, which, like I said, is not my style. I have two really amazing Hawaiian dresses. Maybe one day I'll wear one of them on the show, but it's not my style. And so I'm looking for something that looks like me, but maybe I never even considered before. When I was a kid, I wanted to be Joan Jett and the Blackhearts. Well, just Joan Jett. I was kind of into that rock and roll thing, but nothing fit for me. And so it's a new chance for me to fit into new things. But today, what we're going to talk a little bit about is aging and weight gain. And a lot of times people feel that it's inevitable, that you're just going to put on weight as you get older, and there's not much you can do about it. But the truth of the matter, the more I've investigated and talked to my trainer about it, she works with people of all variety of ages, and she says flat out, not true. She said that when I first started training with her, she goes, I'm working with 79-year-olds that could kick your butt. So there you go. She has people that have kept fit and healthy throughout any age. Now, I'm, not very, very old. I don't want to give, classifications, but I'm old enough. And I have seen changes go by over the years. It seems to me that if you asked me to round up, what does aging do to your body? First of all, you just don't heal like you did. You don't recover from being tired like you did. Some things take a little bit longer than they used to. I remember when I was at work, one of my coworkers who was in her 30s, she sneezed really loudly and she goes, "Oh, I think I threw out my back." And I was like, "Yes, welcome to our age." That happens. You sleep funny and your arm is numb for the rest of the day. What strikes me overall, the kind of the end of it is all the things that used to be um, good practices, things that you were supposed to do: warm up, cool down after exercise, things that you were supposed to eat, that this is healthiest for you, get this amount of sleep, everything that's a good practice in life. Struck me that now at this age went from being, I don't know, like a good suggestion to almost being mandatory. Now I have to warm up when I work out, and I have to cool down when I work up, and I have to get the right amount of sleep, and I have to eat the right amount of nutrition and do all the things that I'm supposed to do. Primarily because when I don't, now I start to feel not great. And that seems to me the biggest change of all, is that now I try to do everything that my whole life I was told to do and I never did. And so hopefully we're going to get a clear picture now about age-related weight issues and what you can do to fight back. What does science say about all of that? Again, I'm not a doctor, but there's been a number of really good studies about it. Like I said, the idea is that people feel that aging, weight comes along with aging. The older you get, and they think your metabolism slows down, and that's just a part of life. And I can tell you a lot of that is just not true. One of the interesting things about it is that when I was a kid and I saw people who were my age, it was funny. I shared a video with a friend of mine that showed people like in 70s TV versus now. And if you look at the guy who is Ant-Man, I can't think of his name right offhand, he's the same age as Archie Bunker was when Archie Bunker was on the TV show. And we look different. And I remember my mom's friend, she got to be a grandmother and she put a shawl on and she just kind of waited around in her apartment waiting for the grandkids to call. She didn't do things and she didn't live things. And I can tell you the generations that have come, since our time, including baby boomers, they have revolutionized what aging looks like. Doing the things that you want to do, going out and having adventures. The person I know of in my life who has the best adventures, she is doing great, and she's keeping healthy, and she's amazing, and she goes on these massive adventures. I mean, I hope someday to go on some of the adventures she goes on because she's so great. Yeah, Paul Rudd, that's the name. Thanks. And you don't have to, go quietly into that good night, as Shakespeare said. What happens is it's not so much that as you get older, your life kind of winds down. I don't want anyone to think that, because that is not at all true. What happens is we slow down. We decide we're not going to be as active. We decide that we're not going to do as many things. And it is because we have picked to do less that our body responds. We lose muscle mass. We lose. Cardio is now becoming cardiorespiratory factors because your breathing and your heart kind of go hand in hand. When we don't see activity, when we kind of give up on all the things we used to do. Now, I get some of it. Some of it I used to be more adventurous. I had less, I guess, fear of getting hurt. And I got hurt, And so I think my experience now tells me I could get hurt. And so there are things that I do that are a lot less dangerous. But that doesn't mean that you can't be active still. That doesn't mean you can't still go out there and have amazing adventures and keep physically fit. There are other factors that do change, namely hormonal changes, both in men and women. Both men and women go through hormonal changes over time. But when you look at it and you look at what they talk about as people gaining weight over ages, most of those extra weight pounds has to do with the lack of physical activity, and namely the lack of strength training. When you don't do strength training, you get what is called sarcopenia. And sarcopenia just means that you have lost muscle. And so you can't open jars and you can't get out of chairs. I remember during the pandemic, I went to buy a new chair, and they had this chair that stood up and then plopped you out of it. And I thought, oh, is this, I was trying to imagine who this was for. And he says, no, people will eventually get to the point where they can't get out of chairs. This gets them out of the chair. Oh, I see. So eventually, if you let your muscle mass go, you will see the sarcopenia. You'll start to see fat even change where it's located. Now, for women, women tend to get fat more on their thighs and on their rump and that area, while men tend to gain it more in their center core area. But as we get older, women too will also gain abdominal fat, which is more dangerous and can impede our health. And it's dangerous basically for both men and women, but women start to gain age or weight right around that stomach. So steps that you can take in order to try to minimize this from happening is incorporate resistance training, weight training, and try to build muscle. I think that when I first started dieting and I was in Weight Watchers and all those things, they sort of lumped cardio in together with weight training. Just go exercise. I don't care if you go out for a run or you lift weights. And now we're starting to get the idea that weight training builds muscles. It also builds, muscles burn fat, so it builds little factories inside of us to burn calories. And so when it comes to weight loss, that is helping us to burn more calories. And yes, you're right. The understanding that hormones have a lot to do with it. The opening jars, we're going to talk about that in just a bit. But yes, hormones will play a role in that. But when we do weight training, we're going to take a look at really increasing our strength. And we can increase the strength in our hands and our arms and in all sorts of places that will help us burn more calories, help us so that we can get out of the chair, be more mobile, have more adventures, and do all the things that we want to do. The weight training, the resistance training is key in all of this. Cardio is great, but think of it as cardio is great for keeping your heart healthy, keeping your respiratory system healthy, and so it's a different kind of health. And so don't lump them all together like I have to do 6 days of training a week. You want to know what kind of balance you're going to have between cardio and strength training. That is a big one. You keep up with strength training, resistance training, you will burn more fat, you'll burn more calories. It is why I started going to a trainer and doing all the physical weight training exercises. We don't do cardio when I go to the trainer. It's all body strength exercise because I want to age gracefully. That was my goal when I told her. I had given up on weight loss, and I told her, I just want to be able to age gracefully. I want to be able to get out of chairs. And we already started noticing that we could no longer get up from the floor. My friend and I, who goes to the gym together, when you sit on the floor, you can't get up unless you put your hands there and you grab the couch, and it becomes tougher and tougher. And it's hard, to do that. And once you start not being able to get out of chairs, now you're in real trouble. Now you have lost the ability to feed yourself, to do certain things in your activity. I don't want to get there. And I also, the other reason for having the muscle and the strength and the resistance training is as you build muscle along in your arms and your legs, it protects the joints. It adds an extra layer of protection. So even if you are having some sort of a knee problem or an ankle problem, I screwed up my ankles, you build the muscles around them, you will have less trouble with any sort of old injuries you may have. And the second part comes in, besides the exercise, is that people have trouble sleeping. I had insomnia, so it's a little hard for me. I had insomnia until I was about 45 years old, and I sleep better now than I ever did in my life. But from what I hear from my friends is they are sleeping less well. They're having more stress, and they realize they can't eat what they used to eat. You used to be able to just eat pizzas, like when we were in the dorms, and we could just eat pizzas all the time and garbage and junk food and felt fine the next day, and you just can't even do that anymore. They also notice they can't drink alcohol anymore. They feel miserable when they do that. So part of this is us adjusting to our eating and drinking activities. All sorts of studies, like I said, that goes out there, and the number one key is, can we do weight and resistance training properly so that we age gracefully? We are able to get out of the chair. We're able to get up and do the things that we're hoping to do and increase what they call the basal metabolic rate. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm a big lump. I do all these sitting hobbies. That's what I do. And unfortunately, it trashed my metabolic rate. I'm trying to gain that back again by increasing strength, by becoming more muscly, so that I just burn calories like a normal human being instead of the lump I used to be. And by increasing your calories, you could increase the amount of calorie burn you have. It naturally does go down over time. You're right. I mean, I don't want to say that aging doesn't do anything. They say that essentially people will lose about 1 to 2% per decade of muscle mass, and that starts somewhere in the mid 20s. And by age 50, that means that if you just let it go and don't do anything, you could lose up to 30% of your muscle mass compared to maybe your college years. Your body's like this engine, and in the 20s, someone said it's like a sports car where you can just burn through fuel without much effort. But by the time you're in your 40s and your 50s, they say it's more like a family sedan. It runs fine, but it doesn't quite burn as quickly as it used to. And so that slowdown means we have to compensate. We have to step up our game. And that is fine to an extent because I think we're more capable of being a little bit more disciplined. At least I am than I was when I was in my 20s. And so, again, as I said before, everything that was a good practice when I was young now becomes very necessary. I need to do these things so that I can age gracefully. Now, sarcopenia is, like I said, is what they call age-related muscle loss. Again, it starts somewhere in your mid-20s to 30s, and you lose a certain amount of muscle mass unless you are actively doing strength training, resistance training, and that matters when you start building it up. Now, if you look at me, I did the DEXA scan, which I did an episode on before. I have about 96 pounds of lean mass. I increased that by 12 pounds over the course of this diet, according to the DEXA scan. And that's great because that means I have all these active calorie burners inside of me. I have more muscle than I ever had before. And I'm probably going to go into my 60s being healthier than I have ever been in my entire life, which is remarkable, but it means you can do that too. This is not something that you just have to, oh, well, that's just the way it is. So you keep strength training, you keep muscle building, and it's almost just an anti-aging prescription right then and there. All right, let's see. So it's part of it too. And so it's not only that you lose muscle, fat shows up in different places. You get the more dangerous visceral fat. And then they also talk about how these combinations go together. The type 2 diabetes, the heart disease, metabolic syndrome, which is why I'm on GLP-1 in the first place, taking this drug to increase that. And I started getting all the syndromes: bad cholesterol, bad blood pressure, bad all stats. All my stats were bad. And this is something that if you listen to some doctors, and I had a doctor kind of say this to me, well, that's just what happens to you in middle age. They go together as a kit, and that's what you get. And I don't want people to feel they have to accept that. You can fight that. And like I said, the resistance training, the strength training, it is your ticket to fighting this off. So this is why I'm doing it, because someday I might not be on GLP-1s anymore. Right now, this diet is going very well. My metabolism is kicked back in place. But I want to, if I go off of this drug, which might be early next year, I want to replace it with an active, physically fit body that burns calories like it's supposed to. And the next part comes in hormones. We talked a little bit about it. Men will lose testosterone. That plays a big impact on them. Women, menopause drops estrogen, which is strongly linked to that increase of belly fat. The men get lower testosterone, which means that they lose their ability to build muscle more quickly. And it lends itself towards storing more fat. So there are absolutely hormonal changes that happen within you. That also means that insulin starts to get deregulated properly. Ghrelin, which is what makes you hungry, but leptin signals fullness. And as those signals start losing their effectiveness, not being as efficient, suddenly you're eating more, you're stopping less early, and now you're storing up more calories because your body is just not telling you like it used to that was the case. I mentioned before that in the history of mankind, our ability to store fat helped us up to about 50 years ago, and now it's killing us. Essentially, we, like I said, become more active. We work more. We become more sedentary. Watch more TV. Exercise less. That's for young kids, and I get it because I get sore. I get tired more than I used to get tired, and then our sleep gets worse, and it all just kind of work together to get that scale to increase up. And when we gain weight, it isn't as much, like I said, it is from overeating, but it has to do with these small, consistent calorie surpluses. I always talked about how you don't gain weight because of what happens between Thanksgiving and New Year's. It's between what you do from New Year's to Thanksgiving. Those incremental calories that creep up, an extra 100 calories a day here and there, that one small cookie, that one bit of ice cream, it starts adding up and it starts adding on to extra pounds. When I was putting on weight, it was slow over time. And then it was that when you fall out of a building, it's going great until the very end, or, it's slow at first and then all of a sudden fast. It sneaks up on you, and then that's where that middle age, what they call the middle age spread, starts creeping up on you as well. It is important for us to fight it, and it's important for us to not get that creeping weight. And sometimes what will happen is I have some elderly friends, and she's always been thin, kind of a very rail thin sort of body build to her, and she kept that. She can wear all the clothes that she has always worn her whole life. However, what had happened is because she was losing muscle, because she stopped going for her daily walks, she stopped going and doing so much around the house, that weight was getting replaced. She was losing muscle, and it was replacing it with fat, and she was still in the same size pants, and so she still thought she was doing okay, but instead it was slowly getting replaced for her, and then she was struggling with sarcopenia. So keep that in mind, that essentially it's not just good enough for us to go in and say, look, I'm in the same pair of jeans, I'm fine, or I eat what I used to eat and it's fine. We will have to keep adjusting our diets, just like we would adjust our budgets if we got a new job or retired or something like that. Instead, we're always going to have to evaluate what we should be eating at that time and what we should be exercising. Keep fighting and doing the resistance training. And then if you can afford a trainer, it's always worthwhile to do. They will keep you on target. But if not, there's a lot of great options. I did a video on it a while ago. From everything from videos on YouTube to Apple Fitness to coming up with a training plan on your own and following it, and make sure you do it rigorously. All right, let's take a look. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about the hormones. And estrogen drops in women. This is the part that has to do with menopause, that starts to shift weight from the hips and the thighs to the abdomen, which becomes the more dangerous type of fat. Progesterone declines, which is not directly related to weight gain, but it can have some other noticeable changes like water retention, that kind of thing. And both men and women lose testosterone, which means losing the ability to put on muscle. So we both go through that. And then we start getting that slower metabolic rate. The metabolism does shut down, but like I said, it's primarily because we shut down. We don't become as active. We don't start doing the things that we're supposed to do. And that's where our fat redistributes and we become, more, instead of a pear-shaped, where it's all, like I said, in the hips, it becomes happening in the apple where it's going into the guts area too. All right, we talked about strength training. We talked about everything else. Anyone have any questions or comments about what you've done to stay fit through the ages? Give you a moment there. I need like a Jeopardy music in there. Well, just to keep going, and then we'll bring this to a close, is essentially the idea is keep strength training, keep resistance training. That's the most important thing. And the NIH has on their website a whole section on aging and aging healthy that has some great information on it. Most of the hospitals you do try to have stories and articles talking about recent research on it. And at this point, what it looks like is that we can keep from aging by doing strength training, resistance training, doing all the things that we're supposed to do, eating the fiber, the the dark vegetables, the dark fruits, of coloring, getting fiber in, and it's most of the things, strangely enough, that they tell you to do when you're going on a GLP-1 anyway. So that is what we're doing now. We're sort of on training wheels, and it's teaching us how to eat in a better way. And if anyone else has comments, we have one comment. You try to walk more and on purpose. Yeah, going for walks is one of the best ways that you can just start doing something beneficial for yourself. But yeah, weight training is going to be pretty important in the long run. So if you can get some kinds of kinds of band exercise, barbells and that kind of piece, that will be helpful to you in keeping away the natural muscle loss. Walking is great, but instead it is doing resistance and weight training. And Allison says the biggest change that she made when she realized is that the only selfish thing I do is to work out. Normally think of everyone else, right? That's a great point. I think that a lot of people and feel this is my time, to do something, and I'm doing something, particularly everyone from new parents to people who have obligations, that if I go out there and exercise, I'm leaving my spouse to take care of the kids, or I'm leaving this amount of work on the plate that needs to get done, and I'm not doing it because I'm going out and exercising more. But I think that it does seem selfish if you look at it, I guess, from one point of view. But when you look at it from the point of view is you'll be around to be that loved one for all these years. I think that's kind of what went wrong with my friend who's in their 90s, is she was taking care of the house, and she looked at going for her walk and exercising as selfish. And right now they are enjoying being healthy together. But you asked anyone in that family, they would say, I want you around. And so it's not selfish at all. And I appreciate you saying that, because I know I used to belong to Weight Watchers, and that's what you heard all the time, that my kids, they want to eat big pasta dishes, but if I cook healthy, then they're super mad about it. And it's they feel selfish. Or that one person I keep bringing up who stopped taking the GLP-1 because she's the mama and she cooks for the family, and if she's on this diet where she can't eat all the foods, or she doesn't feel like eating all the foods she wants to eat, now her family is suffering because she's the mama and she cooks for everyone. And like I said, I suspect that if you asked her family, they would say, I want mama to be around and healthy and with us and playing with the grandkids forever than cooking meals for us. Allison said, I've been doing Pilates for balance and strength, and that doesn't leave time for weight training with all the walking. Yes, you are a big walker for sure. I know that. And I started doing Pilates too, and I've really enjoyed it. It is another good, there is strength training inside of there. And then, like you said, certainly balance. My trainer likes to do these series of exercises, and we just we wanted Amy Grant arms, so it's all been arm muscle workouts lately. On Wednesdays we are switching to Wednesday Pilates, because I said I'm really interested in learning more about this, and it's a good strength training as well. How much you have to do, I do 3 times a week of strength training. I do 3 cardio exercises a week, and then Sunday I do yoga stretching. And oh, yeah, right. And then selfish in a good way too. Yeah. So the saying, I'm finally doing something for me. I'm doing something to make myself healthy and to make myself better, and to make sure that I can live the kind of life I want to live, if that's what you mean. All right. Any other questions or comments before we wrap up what you can do to fight the good fight in weight loss? people a chance to think. I'm new to, like I said, the live thing, and so I appreciate you all being out there and trying this out with me. All right. Well, I appreciate y'all being here and listening to this. We'll check the sound again to make sure the sound is good. The last couple weeks I had some sound issues, but I think that we'll get this on track. So you can always email me at jill@startwithsmallsteps.com. If you have any comments or questions, you can put comments in the chat channel, which turns out to be right down there. I was pointing in all sorts of directions. It's down there. And if you have anyone questions or comments or anything that you would like to say, I appreciate you being here and have a great week.